welcome herd, welcome panel. I hope everyone is having a great day today. We are here for a very exciting scenario here. We're going to talk about the early rise of roleplay. It has been my great fear that over the years, the history of roleplay has kind of boiled down to, one person and one game. And I would like to talk more about all the other things that made our hobby as varied and great as it is. So tonight I have Scott Robinson, the co-creator of Bunnies and Burrows, Marc Miller, the creator of Traveler, and Jeff D, the co-creator of Villains and Vigilantes. Welcome, gentlemen. How are you this evening?
Good evening.
Good.
Good evening.
Hi.
Thank you very much for joining us. As always, we're going to start with some quick introductions. Since most of what we're going to talk about is how you got into gaming, we'll save that bit. But if you want to talk about just kind of 2 or 3 lines about how you're involved with gaming these days and anything exciting you're doing. Scott, you want to start?
Sure. So obviously I got started in the 70s. That's why I'm here. But then there was a big period of time, a couple of decades, when I was not really involved in games very much. I was busy in my career, which was a scientist and professor. Then I got back into it about almost 15 years ago. My co-creator of Bunnies and Burrows dragged me back into it, and so I'm still running Bunnies and Burrows games, and Dennis and I wrote a new version of it that was published in 2019, and I'm working on some other game systems now too.
Oh, excellent. I did not know that. I feel like there should be a line there about, just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
Yeah, I've got a meme for that.
All right, Jeff.
So I after discovering Dungeons and Dragons in high school, my best friend and I wrote a superhero role-playing game called Villains and Vigilantes, which has done pretty well. And I've also took a little foray out of the paper games industry for a while, doing computer game art and design for, almost a decade. But came back into the industry and have self-published a number of different games since then, which I'm not going to list for you now. I'm sure we'll get into them.
Okay. And Mark.
And good evening. We're talking about role-playing tonight. I started role-playing in the 60s in college in classes. So I had an instructor who wanted us to role-play a political convention or the Model UN and that sort of thing. And we learned all this great stuff about role-playing, but it was all dry educational stuff that you had to study up on who you were, and then you had to act like he was or she was. And it was the magic of Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson who decided we could digitize characters and give them numbers and roll dice to decide what they were going to do. That really changed everything. The most interesting thing was that somebody showed us, our game company, Dungeons and Dragons, and literally the staff understood how to play D&D within 10 minutes of being shown the books. But about a month later, our company president, Frank Chadwick, said, "You're not allowed to play Dungeons and Dragons while the sun is up," because we were getting no work done at all. So then we played just as much Dungeons and Dragons as before, but we worked during the day to get our regular work done. And I've been doing it ever since.
So this means you got to play more in the wintertime then, right?
That's absolutely right.
And it was a national holiday on days where there was an eclipse.
All right. I want to say a quick hello to our chat. There are a lot of messages already, so this might take me a minute longer than it usually does. Starting us off is Legatus, who is one of our moderators. can spare a minute or two for us. Silverlock, friend of the channel, and I follow on Twitter because he knows more about really cool pulp sci-fi than I will ever know. Trapped Chest, welcome. Glad to have you here. And we're going to start getting into the people that I don't think I've ever seen in chat before. So Zeldan 2008, welcome. Good to have new people. Love to see new faces. Hanayama-san is here. Mr. Hunter is our chat trivia person. I learn all sorts of interesting new facts with him in the chat. Oh, and a big Traveler fan, as I recall. Rio, welcome. I am well, thank you. I hope you are too. Grandpappy is here and too tired to cause mayhem. I do not believe you. I have never seen you in a chat where you were not causing at least a little bit. I already covered Silverlock, but Traveler was my first RPG played with a group in 1983. We have Blue Bastard. Where's Dennis? Been my pleasure to play with him several times. North Texas RPG Con and with Jeff. More new faces. Good to see you. As your GM is here. Howdy, howdy. And howdy back to you. Matt Funcool, hello all. Like, comment, and share the stream. Thank you very much. Always happy when people can do that too. And Silent Storm is also new people. All the new people are loved here. All the new herd members. Wormy Spoons, how's it going, herd? I hope you're well, Wormy. And I think everybody else is people chatting and saying hello to each other at the moment. So I covered that much faster than I thought it was going to. Excellent. And we apparently have lots and lots of lurkers because we've got lots of people watching I haven't seen in the chat yet. So please do pop in and say hello, even if you are normally just a lurker. Joel Peterson, hey all. Also new. Also happy to have you here. Whoops. Hang on a second. It jumped up on me and I'm putting up chats that... Not new, just been away for a long, long while. Well, we're happy to have you back then. Just a really quick announcement. Eraser's going to be putting some posts in. YouTube has been kind of a jerk to a few people lately. Tony Stark of... I'm trying to remember what his online name is. Stark of Iron, I think. Got demonetized last night for no apparent reason except that YouTube, he puts up my little blip as an advertisement for me on several of his chats. YouTube apparently decided that he is copywriting me, and because I refused to file a copyright strike, they demonetized him for that and advertisement he puts up for other people. So we're going to be putting up his PayPal because until that gets straightened out, he needs to pay rent. And Anti-Derivative Jill, also friend of the channel, also got demonetized for reasons that no one can figure out. Her appeal passed, and then they just randomly demonetized her again for no particular reason. So until that gets straightened out, we're going to be putting up links. If people can go without a cup of coffee one day and throw some dollars their way, much appreciated. And Original Hamster is here. Behold it as I, return to the problem. If Grandpappy can't cause mischief, Hamster will. All right, and on to this conversation that everybody came here for. 1970s, I was born when some of your games came out, but not all of them. And I think many of my chat are in the same boat. So just, I guess, start out by telling us a little bit about, like, what was it like? I have a very hard time grasping growing up in a time where there wasn't actually role playing. Did any of you start out with war games? I know that's kind of the start of how things began with D&D. Crickets.
How do we
Okay.
how do we decide who goes?
Oh, just jump in. We're all adults here.
Well, I was in college, actually. I finished a tour of Vietnam. I'd come back and I just had nothing to do with my life except fool around. And I fell in with a bunch of guys who were playing games, board games, war games, Banter Blitz, the SPI and Avalon Hill board games, because that's what there was. The student union was open all night, and we would literally show up about 8 or 9 o'clock and play till 2 or 3 or 4 in the morning, and then go back and not go to class and just have a wild time. There wasn't role playing, it was board games. You sat across the table from somebody and you played something, or you talked about what you were doing. And interestingly enough, for what I was doing, we had the ability to design games with markers and blank hex sheets and cut up counters, and just had a great time. We discovered role playing when some friends of ours showed up we were in Illinois, from Michigan, and showed us a copy of Dungeons and Dragons. And we were hooked immediately. We just knew what it was and had a wonderful time. Every one of us built our own continent and our own dungeon, and we shared it with each other, and we just had a great time. It just spoke to us. It just said something that we'd always wanted to do when we read Lord of the Rings or Fairy Prince or anything. We just were having a good time. So we had a good time then, and we had no concept of where it was going to go 50 years later. I mean, isn't it amazing that role-playing is something everybody knows what to do now? Network television talks about it. Mainstream knows what it was. Back then, we were just a bunch of nerds who everybody thought we were crazy, if not devil worshippers. And now we're mainstream.
Yes. We'll have to cover the Satanic Panic, too, at some point.
I was the youngest of 3 kids in my family, and my dad and my 2 older brothers all liked to play the Avalon Hill, cardboard shits on a hex map, military history-based games. I did it a little, but I was not so into that. I have more of an appreciation of the importance of history now than I did when I was, 14. But I grew up in a little town about a half-hour drive south of Lake Geneva, and my eldest brother was the first among us to discover D&D. I remember very clearly going with my mom to pick him up from his gaming group. They were in the screened-off front porch of a house, sitting around a table with one kid behind a ref screen and miniatures and dice on the table. And one of the things that really amazes me these many years later is that the hobby still looks like that. It looks the same. Never could have predicted that. So my eldest brother introduced me to Dungeons and Dragons, took me to his gaming group, where then they didn't play D&D that week. They played Chainmail, the earlier and somewhat related medieval miniatures game. They were kind enough to give me control of one little unit of infantry, which I promptly got killed, and then ran my one knight figure that survived, my leader figure, all over the battlefield, role-playing my guts out. But we would go up to Lake Geneva like once a month or so to see what was new. I saw and bought Traveler off the stands there at the Dungeon Hobby Shop when it first came out. That was super exciting because, I don't remember if there was, I guess, did Tunnels and Trolls come out before Traveler? There wasn't a lot, and it wasn't, new genres. The exciting thing about Traveler was, oh my gosh, you could do this with science fiction? And so still in high school, my best friend Jack Herman and I had been playing D&D, and we were both comic book fans, and we got into a little dispute. Would Spider-Man or the Human Torch win in a fight? And we decided, well, we do this thing called role-playing where you stat up characters and then roll dice to see what happens. We could play that battle out. And we did, and I don't remember who won, because then that's not important, but we realized, oh my gosh, you could do superheroes with this too. So we worked up Villains and Vigilantes, first edition in 1979, just barely in the 70s, and took it to a convention looking for a publisher, and wound up going with Fantasy Games Unlimited, who incidentally had just recently published Bunnies and Burrows.
Nice segue.
I was going to say that was well done.
Yeah, I had a little bit of experience with war games before I was introduced to Dungeons and Dragons. I had a lot more interest in being interested in war games, but I just didn't have a lot of opportunity when I was in high school or even as an undergraduate. But I was off to the University of Wisconsin for graduate school in the fall of '74, and one of the other people in my laboratory was Dennis Astaire, and he said, you ought to stop by, on Saturday. We're playing this game. This is the fall of 1974, and so he introduces me to Dungeons and Dragons. I don't remember that we were sitting around a table at all. We were all just lollygagging on couches and on the floor. And I think the way I remember it is a number of the people that were in the group were among the original game testers down in Lake Geneva. We were playing in Madison, which is just a little bit north of Lake Geneva. So it was very early. It was just that Christmas, I remember that I got the box set at a at the mall, at a bookstore. They were selling it, and it must have been one of those early box sets that Gary Gygax had driven around in his car to deposit at various places around Wisconsin and northern Illinois. But I immediately got into it. It introduced me to Lord of the Rings rather than the other way around. And the other thing that happened that fall was the novel Watership Down by Richard Adams was published in its American edition. So I got hammered 3 different ways, none of them having to do with zoology directly. And so I was pretty much hooked in this idea of immersing yourself in the role of one of these characters. So I started drawing up my own dungeons, and we used to populate them with somebody had written a big computer program that would just spit out like a mega dungeon worth of content, and we'd use that to populate our dungeons then. So I did that, and over the summer when I'm doing field research, during the day I'm watching predators and prey interactions, and during the evening I'm sitting around a campfire drawing up the original rules for Bunnies and Burrows. So it was just that very next fall, less than a year after Dungeons and Dragons came out, that we were playtesting D&D.
I should interject here. I've twice now neglected to acknowledge that I was also an artist at TSR during the late first edition AD&D days, and probably most of the people in the audience know my name from that more than anything else. But I am both an artist and a game designer.
And did the art for the second edition of D&D.
Indeed, and I did art recently for Mark, who's kind enough to remember that before we started here, and also I did a bunch of stuff in Mega Traveler, I recall, back in the day. I get around.
And, Jeff, we think about that. Back in the day, I couldn't just research on the internet to see where an artist was. I saw your name somewhere, and somebody said, find out how we get a hold of him. And then somebody called the TSR and says, who's this Jeff D? Do you have a number we can call? And you were gracious enough to say, oh, sure, I suppose I could do some artwork for you guys. And so
You called TSR to find out how to reach me, and they helped you out? I'm surprised. I have an angry letter from Gary Gygax. It's one of my prized possessions. I had done some work in, like, my first professionally published work ever was some illustrations in Dragon Magazine #6. And then I went off to art school, and it was while I was at art school that Jack Herman and I cut our deal with Fantasy Games Unlimited. And then I wrote back to TSR saying, I'd like to do some more art for you. And, oh, by the way, I just sold my role-playing game to this company. And I got an angry letter back from Gary Gygax. Well, if you're working with Fantasy Games Unlimited, then maybe you should just do that. Luckily, he was not the art director, and like the next year, I got hired on full time by Dave Sutherland. So it all worked out.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It was cutthroat in those days.
Back then, that response by Gary Gygax was unusual because everybody got along with everybody, and if you wanted a copy of a game, you would call somebody up and say, "Can I have a copy of that game?" And they would send you one, and maybe they would bargain for something, but it was just, they would take care of it. And then we would go to conventions and everybody would hang out together and have a good time, and only rarely was somebody mad or angry letters or whatever.
He was just jealous you were hanging out with other companies.
I am glad that you've had that experience. That is the right way for things to be.
He was just jealous you were hanging out with other companies.
That's right. That's right. And I didn't take it badly. Like I said, it's a prized possession, and I did go work for him anyway, so no big deal.
So I always joke that one of the reasons I am called the eclectic goat is that my tastes tend to be all over the place, and I am far more likely to only know the things that no one else does. So Jeff, I only know you. I had no idea you'd done art for Wizards of the Coast at all. I only knew you because of...
Also, very recently, only very recently, but yeah.
But yeah, games and everything else, television. I excel in the things that no one else ever watched, played, listened to. So,
but way back in the day, I'll just tell you a story here. Way back in the day, early '70s, every little community had a hobby store. And they sold tank models and airplane models and model trains. And that's what they sold. And that's where we sold our games into. And so they'd have a little corner of the store that sold games, sometimes in brown envelopes or Ziploc bags, as well as the Avalon Hill games. And then Dana Lombardi, who was running a column for Model Retailer, which tells you what those stores sold, did an analysis. He talked to a bunch of stores, and they discovered that they could sell a model of a 58 Chevy. They would stock it, they'd sell it once a year, they'd replace it. And they could get a game in, and they could sell that same game 3 or 4 times in a year. It's called churn in the business. And he published an article that said, look, games turn faster than models do. And within about 2 years, by the late '70s, they were all game stores instead of hobby stores. Still the same content, but they called themselves game stores because that made them more money. And we were just lucky that happened. The war games happened. So by the time role-playing came along, those stores were ready to stock role-playing games too. And if that hadn't been in place, it would have been a lot harder road for Dungeons and Dragons to get out to everybody.
Yeah, there are a lot of people talking about how they really miss gaming stores. I am very lucky in that despite living in a very rural area, there are, I think, 5 gaming stores within an hour of me. And a lot of them specialize in 40K, but a lot of them have, several of them have really, diverse gaming collections, which is really nice.
But they're experiences, aren't they? They encourage people to come in and play. They've got tables in the back room.
Yeah, one of them,
And
the one I visit the most actually has 4 tables, and usually 2 are for wargaming and 2 are for role-playing. And when it's not lambing and kidding season, I try and go over once a month and, run an indie game that nobody's ever heard of. And sometimes I get players and sometimes I don't. So,
uh,
I have a couple of comments for you guys and questions. Goofus the Doofus donated Australian. I do not know how that translates into dollars, so I'm not even going to try, but thank you very much for the support of the channel. I'm a tad starstruck. Thank you to the 3 of you for creating and facilitating such wonderful things. Your efforts have brought and will continue to bring a great amount of enjoyment. Wishing you the very best.
That's sweet. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, man.
thank you.
And Joel Peterson said, big fan of Traveler 5, would like to ask Mark if there's anything else in the pipeline for that, and to thank him for making such a wonderful tool for science fiction role-playing.
Wow, how long do I get to talk,
Until the next question pops up.
Okay, well, I have this concept that the Traveler is this huge thing with an encyclopedia and a map and all this stuff and 20 books and 5 previous editions. And I could spend 5 or 6 sessions just educating the players on the lore of the Imperium before they can ever even get started. And I like to just dive in instead. And I have this concept I'm trying to bring about, and it's basically a comic book format lore book that sits on the table that they can page through when the play gets slow. And here's a lore book on the history, or another one. It's 24, 36 pages, comic book format, so not a lot of words, but a lot of nice pictures. That, all these games have great pictures in them, but they're for the game master, not for the players. And I'm trying to bring that around, that it would be nice to have those sitting on the table, and when things get slow, they pick that up and they say, oh, that's how the starships work, or, oh, this is this special thing that I could use, or I could find one. And the game master already knows about that, but now the player knows about it, and it creates their own drives and aspirations. So that, you ask what I'm doing with Traveler 5, and of course it works just as well with Mongoose Traveler, so thank you.
Well, that wasn't too bad. We didn't even have to cut you off or anything.
I'm sensitive to that.
Scott, your game came out the same year as the Watership Down movie. Is that correct?
I think the Watership Down movie came out in '78, and our game came out in '76.
Okay, sorry.
So-
I was thinking both of them were on an anniversary this year.
But the original B&B, this is the 50th anniversary this year of its publication. So kind of my home convention is North Texas RPG, and I know Jeff knows that well. We're going to be doing some special events this year at that con, so I'm looking forward to that.
Sorry, I was busy booing Grandpappy for making terrible jokes. Which convention?
North Texas RPG. So it's in Dallas in June.
That is one of the 2 that are on my I would love to attend this, and it will probably never happen.
They have a limited number of people that can go. I think Gary's limiting it to 600 people this year, 600 tickets. But they of anything I've experienced, they really embrace old school gaming. A lot of the older games are there. A lot of the people that know the older games from back in the day are there, and it's just a very welcoming group.
Yeah, I've heard wonderful things.
It's a great con. I've been going for years.
Yeah.
I am unfortunately at the wrong end of the country, so.
Well, I am too. I live in Washington, the state of Washington.
That's true. That's true.
So it's a bit of a hop for me, but There's this weird connection between Texas and Washington I haven't figured out yet, but
Yeah, I would love to, but finding somebody to, house sit a farm for a week becomes.
yeah, that's
I
Just
I think
bring them.
my
Just bring the goats. Just bring them.
I think my last vacation was something like 15 years ago. So
Uh,
my honeymoon was 3.5 days because we couldn't leave any longer than that.
I do. You mentioned the film, though. I do remember when the film came out, and I thought the film was a very interesting approach they took to the adaptation. I love the fact they did it in watercolors. I thought it stayed pretty faithful. They introduced a few new things, but did a better job of staying faithful than the more recent Netflix
Oh, that
animation
was
that
terrible.
they
Yep.
did. And and then I'm always shocked when people are telling me, "Oh yeah, I saw that film Watership Down when I was a kid, and I was traumatized. It was so terrible. It was so violent." And it was like, no, it was just that's nature. It was just nature.
Yeah, I am always. I mean, I saw it later in life than I think most people did. But I don't think again, I grew up on a farm, so that kind of thing was just sort of par for the course in my life from a very early age. But I mean, I'm a Gen Xer, and we grew up watching Alien at the age of 8 or 10. So I'm always a little bit thrown when people start talking about it.
You'd appreciate this. I've been creating some new minis for odd Bunnies and Bros games, and this is my alien version of a bunny.
I mean, we had Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where everybody was traumatized by the guy with the
With the
Judge
swirly
Judy
eyes,
swirly
yeah.
eyes and the
Yeah. Go figure.
but yeah, everybody thinks of bunnies as cute, and they don't like thinking of them as.
Well, that's why they need to play Bunnies and Bros and be disabused of that.
Yeah, so I tell people all the time. So I raise heritage breed animals, and I have goats and sheep and chickens and geese and I have rabbits. And the animal I have the most injuries from are rabbits. I literally have scars up both arms.
I used to
And
I
the
used to
geese have
keep
never bothered me at all.
I used to keep newspaper clippings of weird stories involving rabbits. And my favorite one was it came out of Britain where there was a train derailment and the engineer blamed it on a rabbit that had jumped into the compartment where he was and attacked him and he jumped off the train.
Ow.
That's unusual. Rabbits are much worse about clawing than they are,
Well,
or at least in my experience, much
Yeah.
worse about clawing than they are biting. So.
Yeah.
Legatus says, thoughts on forever DMs or GMs? Is it a good thing? Is it good for the game? Or since it seems there are more players and less people willing to DM GM, is it a byproduct?
What's a forever DM? What do you mean? Only playing in one person's game? Is that what we're saying?
No, I would be considered a forever GM because I think I've played in maybe 2 games in the last 10 years, and I'm
Oh, I
always the
see.
one that runs.
Yeah, it's always been true that way more people are willing and or able, depending on how you look at it, to run games. So, there's a lot of demand. But
Did you say more people are willing to run?
I forget exactly what I said. What I mean is, there are fewer GMs than there are players by far, and so there's a lot of demand for GMs. But I personally, I try to play as often as I can, as well as GMing. But whether that's a good thing or makes any difference, I don't know.
Yeah, I probably GM 5 to 10 times more often than I play in games. And I'm really selective when I play, so
Yeah,
I
same.
really enjoy myself.
Yeah,
Like
Sorry, go ahead.
Manda and Jeff's game. It wasn't Cave Master, but it's a new variant of Cave Master. One of the more
Oh.
recent ones I've played. Yeah,
Yeah, Lost Age.
yeah, it was very good.
Cave Master is my spouse and I are Unigames, and one of our games is Cave Master, which is a Paleolithic role-playing game, and not one of those funny ones where, the gag is you went up a level so you can use another word, right? It's actually like heavily researched Pleistocene role-playing. With the only gimmick to it really is that the mechanics are designed to be something that prehistoric people could have come up with and played. Because you don't use dice because they didn't have dice. You use handfuls of rocks. And she is working on a sequel, I guess you could call it, to Cave Master, which is a Copper Age role-playing game, which is a period I don't think anybody's actually done before. But it would be more, there's a lot of stuff in the news lately about an archaeological site called Göbekli Tepe. It's that period. It's like sort of proto-cities, but still no written language yet.
Yeah, pre-Bronze Age.
Yeah.
It's very good.
I'll tell her you said that.
Daniel from Driving in Dragons had a question, and now I have to find it because apparently we've ended up with more text in the meantime. What would you say is the single most important habit needed to successfully design a viable game?
Habit.
I mean, I'm biased and I would say editing, but
Well, that's true.
I think,
That's true of
Go ahead.
almost any creative thing, that you need to be open to criticism and modifying things based on the feedback that you get. But
Yeah, that's a good thing. Some designers won't tolerate feedback, don't want to hear anything. Just tell me I've done a good job.
yeah,
I
I've
think you
run
need
into
to be
that.
organized. I think you need to be organized. You have to be able to have a vision for what you want it to be, and then you have to continue to strive to meet that vision and revise it as necessary. But I think organization's essential.
yeah, that's a very good answer. I like that too.
I think another thing that I've learned over, I've designed and published like 4 or 5 RPGs now, as you're working on a game, you'll come into it with a concept of what you're after, but as you're doing the development, let it tell you what it needs to be. Like the combat system in Cave Master needed to handle a mammoth hunt in a compelling way, and so that was many evenings out at the local barbecue restaurant with rocks on the table and a notepad keeping track of how it works and like testing different mechanics until that will produce the feel that we need. If a group of players went into this, it makes sense the way that they'd fight it and the dangers that they'd face and how the mechanics work. So that too.
Xander says, did any of you play with Gary? What's your favorite story? Same question for Dave.
Yes, but a different Gary.
And yet we all knew who he meant.
I played one game run by Gary Gygax at a convention in Chicago before I ever worked for TSR. And it was fun.
Yeah, my company was called Game Designers Workshop, and we were a partnership of game designers. And that core, Frank Chadwick and myself and Rich Banner and Lauren Wiseman. But we also published other game designers. So Gary worked for me. We published one of his games. I played some of that just when we were seeing how well it worked. But
I think people forget that he worked for other people.
Yes.
Everybody tends to think of Legatus. When it comes to testing a game, do you like to be an active participant or I think that's supposed to be sit back, watch, get feedback, be in the room for clarification, or let them muddle through. I have strong feelings about this, but
Oh, I always hate the first test because it just blows up and, dumpster fire immediately. I've spent weeks and weeks putting rules together and everything, and I think it's wonderful. And of them, and they look at it and they say, "What does this mean?" And, "Well, you're stupid. It means this, of course." And I have to watch my tongue. But that first encounter, just everything blows up and you start to see, oh, this is way too complex, or this doesn't work at all.
I knew what was going on in my head. Why didn't you?
I would say it's fun, but it's only fun later.
I probably generally run my play tests, and so I'm kind of monitoring what's working and what's not working while I'm running. I think you get a pretty good sense of when people are really engaged around the table and when people are not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like Scott in that regard. Don't do it like me. Whoever asked this question, don't. I know that the right way is to get your game written up, find some outside playtesters, let them run it, see what works for them and what doesn't, get their feedback. That is the right way to do it. The wrong way to do it is sit and agonize over the manuscript, in your head, going over it again and again and again, sitting by yourself at a table, rolling dice, testing mechanics, seeing if they come out the way you want them to, and then just tell your gaming group, okay, that campaign we were running, we're done with that now. Now we're running the new thing that I'm working on, and my players get to play my new broken games. A lot. They're very nice about it, but I know that's not really the right way to go. It works for me and my resources. So
I have done several playtests for various developers and companies. I'm really lucky that my core group are all, with one exception, they're all players that have been playing for like 30 or more years, and they've covered every possible genre, I think. And they do serious games and funny games, and they're all very, they're not fussy about their games, just like games. And so we have our regular campaign, and then we'll do, one shots when somebody shows up and says, hey, here's a game, I need this play tested. But I do think one of the reasons I think I get sought out as an editor occasionally is because the balance between finding someone who understands rules when you're editing and someone who is willing to sit there and figure out every single comma placement I think is kind of a hard balance. But yeah, playtesting is one of those things that I think, when talking about the things that you really need to do in order to run a good game, I think playtesting is maybe one of those things that really new developers don't always do enough, maybe. Because I frequently get games that I'm like, none of this makes any sense. And they're like, well, my home group understood it while I was running it.
Yeah, well, they benefit by bringing it to you, and you can point out that it's not right.
Well, again, if you're running the game, you already know how it's supposed to run, so it's one of those things.
One of the problems is that these games are so deep that you can't just put this in front of somebody for an evening and say, let's play this. And players in role-playing often don't even see the rules. They just hear what the game master puts in front of them.
Yeah.
There's a strange combination of knowing how to write the rules in the first place and getting them in front of somebody who will invest the time playing it and enjoying it to give you the feedback on what works and what doesn't.
Trap Chest says a lot of new developers don't understand that playtesting is more about legibility than mathematical balance.
Yeah.
Xander wants to know, what's everyone playing currently? And campaigns. I don't know if he means what system and what adventure, or I'm just guessing. answer the question however you would like to read it.
I'll jump in. I'm doing way too much gaming.
No
On
such thing.
on Tuesdays, every other Tuesday, I am running Mighty Protectors for a scattered group of friends all over the country on Roll20. And that's third edition Villains Vigilantes, aka Mighty Protectors. They are a team of actually space alien soldiers who have been sent to Earth on a secret mission to hunt out nests of the big space enemy. But in order to fit in on Earth, they are posing as superheroes. So it's half fighting street crime and half going after the nests of the void. On every other Wednesday, I am running a third edition V&V based Western Monster Hunters game. Because the thing I'm working on right now is Tales of the Unseen, the Monsters sourcebook for third edition V&V, which is not... You can use it the way I'm using it now is just a resource for... Here's how to make monsters that you can have your characters fight against. But really, it's Tales of the Unseen is supposed to be like Clive Barker's Nightbreed, where you're the monsters and you're the good guys. It's kind of like X-Men in that regard, right? You're hated and feared and you got weird powers, but you're still the good guys. Then every other Sunday, I was running a Cave Master campaign using the Dinosaurs of the Lost Valley source book, which is, again, a thing you can use to throw dinosaurs at your cavemen, but also there are kind of dinosaur-based playable races, and that was the campaign I'm doing. Unfortunately, one of my players broke her foot sliding on the ice when we had a freeze down here in Texas, and so we've been waiting till she's mobile again before we resume that. Every other Wednesday, I am playing in my spouse's Lost Age game, which is the thing Scott and I were talking about a second ago, the Copper Age RPG. And then every other Friday, my spouse, Amanda, I should say her name, Amanda, is running a Bathorm campaign, which is our role-playing game in the setting from TSR's 1976 game RPG Empire of the Petal Throne, which, if you've ever heard of it, you are awesome. We got the rights to that years ago and did a new game.
Oh yeah, no, I played in it like when it came out. So.
Yeah, it's science fantasy. Far, far, far in the future, on a planet that was colonized by humans and our alien allies, and then a disaster destroyed civilization, and the RPG takes place thousands of years after that. So it's like, and there's like science-based magic. So it's like a fantasy RPG built on the ruins of an interstellar space civilization.
Sweet.
That, and finally, a friend of mine the other Fridays is running basically a Thundar the Barbarian campaign using the Mighty Protectors rules for the mechanics. There, I'm done.
So, everyone in the chat, thumbs up if you were incredibly jealous of his gaming schedule.
It's a lot of games, but really, it's really only currently 2 games a week. Really.
That's still a lot of games in a month. Considering that I am happy when I get to run more than 1 game a month. I'm very, very jealous.
Yeah, I'm not gaming as much as I would like to. Mostly my gaming when I'm not going to a con is just kind of extended family and friends of family and things like that. So, once a month or so. I usually am not running Bunnies and Burrows. I've been doing a lot more of Savage Worlds lately, and I really like that system. Both when kind of the off the wall science fiction version like Ben Burns' Zeta Complex, which I love. Um, but also the ones I've been running have been kind of pulp adventures set in the 30s. You've got, you know, pick any old movie, any old pulp movie where you've got, Nazis and you've got gangsters and you might even have a prehistoric valley. You can throw in the stuff that Jeff's done there with the dinosaurs of the Lost Valley, um, under Savage World's rules. So that's been a lot of fun.
Mine's mostly metagaming. I'm at the higher level than playing games themselves. I'm trying to come up with ideas and structures and stories. And I've got a group of email circle that they say something and I say something, and we really have a good time talking about it. But it's trying to figure out where storylines ought to go rather than sitting down and playing the adventures themselves.
Let's see, I had more questions. I starred them. We'll see if I can find them now. Most source books, modules, box sets seem to be a near standardized size. Is this coincidence decided by the industry or publishers for ease of printing? I wonder this every time someone puts out a book that doesn't fit on my bookshelf properly.
And of course, they fit on your bookshelf, and those are often the ones you buy. You know, you can make a book that's 7 by 4 inches, but I think we're all used to looking at a specific size. And the printers have presses that print that size, and if you make it too big, you have to go to the next bigger size in your waste paper, or you make it smaller in your waste paper. So we have to do what the printers tell us, and we do. You know, why would you print something on your printer that's a note card size thing? Because your printer doesn't print note cards; it just prints letter size.
Right.
Well, there has been stuff like Shadow Dark ended up being kind of smaller and fatter and seems to have done quite well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good for them,
In a world where your book is gonna probably come out in a print edition and a PDF, and PDFs are going to be printed on people's home printers, and those things are very comfortable with 8.5 by 11, you're probably going to have 8.5 by 11 pages in your print edition, because otherwise you got to jump through more hoops to get it to work.
Yeah, either that or a half page.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, it's not worth it for me anyway.
Yeah.
I never wanted to learn any of this publishing stuff. I wanted to just design games. This has been forced upon me, but what do you do?
Yeah, there's a game called Corpse Kings that I understand is quite good, and the PDF does really well, but the physical copy is designed to be like I don't know, what do they call them? The card table books. Like, it's huge. And because it's such an odd size, they had to pay extra to get it printed, and so the book is like $80. And I don't know about other people, but I spend too much money on goat grain to afford that. So
there's in the olden days, you know, since that's technically, I think, what we're kind of talking about here. There were a lot fewer options, and it was a lot more of a struggle. I mean, somebody mentioned Ziploc baggies. I mean, that used to be really common, that you'd get a game in a Ziploc bag just because it was cheap and available and you could, and you weren't really in those days competing that much with other publishers for, you know, the quality of your printing. That's a huge thing nowadays, and it makes me shake my head for the old days when you could just, like, good grief, we've made a game, I made it in a form you can read, buy it, read it, and play it. Who cares? Why does it need to have, like, leather binding and foil and all this glossy paper and enough already?
I also remember when
that's what everybody's fighting over these days.
When Ogre and Chitin and some of those games came out in their Ziploc bags, they could be on the end cap of an aisle. They didn't take up any shelf space.
Yeah. And they were cheap to produce.
Very cheap.
So they were cheap to buy. And then and then people would spend money on them, and they got that publisher's name out, and they got that game in front of us. People were happy to have them and play them, and they're almost disposable. Yeah.
There's a game company in my state called Goose Poop Games that functions kind of like that.
You guys remember cheap ass games?
Yes.
Same idea.
Yeah.
Battery wants to know, what game is your guilty pleasure?
I love Kenzer's Knights of the Dinner Table, especially their Cattle Punk. You should find that compendium. I mean, I don't play, you can't play it, but it certainly talks about how to play it. I just think that he does, I loved Boot Hill when that first came out, and his take on it is just brilliant.
Pleasure doesn't make me guilty. So that's why we're here, right? So I do have very strong views on mechanics and things. There's kinds of games I have no interest in, but they're not my guilty pleasures because I'm not playing them at all. And I have very little time these days to play anybody else's stuff. I wish I could, but
Once upon a time, my guilty
I
pleasure
gotta work on my
was
things.
macho. Once upon a time, my guilty pleasure was macho women with guns. I had a friend who ran it pretty exclusively, and it was very funny. Legata says, I grew up with tabletop, pen and paper RPGs. Now so much is done online. Does that affect how you create a game or enjoy a game? Do you create with e-files and PDFs in mind now?
I think we have to take into account e-files and PDFs. We have to take into account, we talked about format. We have to take into account what we produce and how that can be printed out and how it can be accessed. We have to pay attention to links in PDFs and being able to look at it. I wish there were a way to make an ebook with tables. That's a challenge that nobody's figured out yet. We have to pay attention, but the truth is the people buy all this stuff online and they look at it on their phones, but the true pleasure of these games is sitting at a table across from your friends and talking to them and rolling real dice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's my sad tale of woe. So we did this game Cave Master where you use handfuls of rocks, and then along comes Roll20. There is no way to play the game the way it's intended on Roll20. It just doesn't work. Thank goodness the math still works if you roll a d2 minus 1 for each rock instead of having one rock and it could be in one of your two hands that the other person chooses, right? You still have a 50-50 chance. The math works out, but it destroys the guessing game part of, oh well, I hit the guy if he picks this hand, this has got all 5 of my stones in it, right? I tried to make it work with cards on Roll20. That was a mess. So there are some kinds of mechanics that are not going to be supported by online platforms unless you figure out a way to make them work.
Yeah, you have to make a table, and it's a workaround.
Yeah.
Seems like most of the tarot card-based games would be very difficult.
Well,
online.
but I don't know about. I mostly play on Roll20, and it does support card decks, but I don't use them much except for my one attempt to make it work for Cave Master.
It supports
they could
tarot.
probably make that work.
Tarot cards or
Well,
one
you can upload whatever art you want to use for your card deck.
Oh, interesting.
So.
I haven't been on Roll20 in ages because...
Which I had to do. I had to make cards that had little rocks on them.
All right.
Really work.
Our entertainment question for the day. Do any of your games feature intelligent goats? I know the Traveler has the curry.
Are they
I bet,
goats?
I bet that's about the closest we've got.
Well, you know, in a superhero game, superheroes are everything. So, and also a science fiction game. Of course, you've got intelligent goat people out there somewhere, Mark. Right?
Oh, that's my challenge, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't mean anybody has to have ever discovered them.
In
uh,
in bunnies and burrows, they would be actual goats,
right.
and intelligence is a relative thing. So, are they intelligent on human standards, or are they intelligent on bunny standards? So,
Or on goat standards, for that matter. I was going to say his mistake was assuming I'm intelligent as opposed to just a goat. There has been discussions between DM and GM, Game Master, Cave Master, Narrator, Storyteller. Which is correct is all correct. I think this probably depends on the system, but
You know, Traveler tries to call him the referee, and I have to say game master because nobody knows what I'm talking about. But if you actually read the original little wood grain books from Gary Gygax, he called it the referee. And so,
really,
yeah.
my
Interesting.
preference is for game master because it's more generic, and I don't have dungeons in a bunny game. So,
No, yeah, that's true.
Not that you couldn't.
oh well,
yours-
I've had things that are very dungeon-like.
Right.
so yours would be a Warren Master?
No, it's a game master. We're playing a game, so
Yeah, Game
Yeah, that's right.
Master is probably the most generic
Yeah.
thing you can say. That's what I use for Amanda and I and Jack and I use for all of our games. I am not personally a fan of the term storyteller for game design philosophy reasons. That there's a whole thing that we don't have to get into.
Okay, Vicky of Everay Games sent me several questions. I think we've already covered what inspired you to create your games, didn't we? Kind of in your intros. Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Should I go again? It
Sure.
seems like I just talked. So it depends on the game. Like my Tecumel / Empire of the Petal Throne game, Bathorm. I designed that because I was a fan of the original game, all the way. But it came out in '76, and my eldest brother had the game collection in the house, and when he went off to college, he took all the games except for that. So the RPG I cut my teeth on as a GM was Empire of the Petal Throne, and I developed an appreciation for it, and did not, as I became more of a game designer, I did not like its very clunky, proto, almost original D&D-ish mechanics. And over the decades since then, I adapted it to my own Pocket Universe system. And when it was more or less done, I contacted Tecumel Games to get permission to do it. Because so I did that one because I already liked the setting. Cave Master came out of my concerns about the hobby moving in the direction of fancier and fancier, glossy, giant, thick, huge books and special cards and special dice and everything. I don't think it's good for the hobby for companies to be trying to suck as much money as they can out of a dwindling number of aging grognards like us. So I wanted to make a game where if it needed as little additional expense as possible, and I thought, well, something you could play in a forest without even the book. Once you learn the rules, you just look around, pick up some rocks and sticks and scratch in the dirt, and you can play this role-playing game. That's where Cave Master came from. Villains and Vigilantes, of course, because I love superheroes since I was a kid. So it varies.
I'd have to say that but this is true of the original Bunnies and Burrows and of the third edition, and I'm working on a new game that's based on mongooses in Africa. And in in all of those cases, I I'm inspired by wanting to get people to kind of embrace the breadth of what fantasy can be. It doesn't have to just be, knights and little people with furry feet, and it can be much broader than that. Why That's one reason why I think things like Cave Master and Traveler are brilliant games, because they broaden it out of that original, fairly narrow fantasy trope. But the other thing that I hope to accomplish with these kinds of games is there's a little bit of educational value too. That is, I was an educator for most of my career, and so there's actually a lot of biology in my games. It's not all biology. It's not strictly speaking, a simulation of what rabbits are like or mongooses for that matter. But the animals they encounter are real animals, and their behavior, their characteristics are based on the real characteristics of those animals. So I like to sneak in a little bit of nature education when I can.
You're educating people in the moment. How dare you?
We're talking about the origins of role-playing, and Jeff is bringing up Techumel, and I want to discuss for a minute the structure of the Techumel intellectual property for a moment, because M.A.R. Barker has died, but some people were really smart ahead of time, and they went to him and they said, when you're gone, what's going to happen to your game? And they have made an arrangement that when he died, it would end up in the hands of a not-for-profit foundation that would continue to promote and preserve that game for the benefit of the public. Which is why Jeff was able to go and arrange with them to do his game. And I think that's some smart planning ahead of time. We're reaching the point where a lot of game designers are older and they're not going to live forever. Gary has left us. When Greg Stafford of the Chaosium died, his organization made an announcement within a week that he had a succession plan in place, that his games would continue to be out there. There's some smart planning going on to make sure that this hobby continues instead of those games getting lost or stuck in some estate and nobody knows what to do with them.
I believe the gentleman who did Tunnels and Trolls has been unwell, and there's a new version coming out. I don't know if there's a long-term plan there, but I did find it interesting that that was getting renewed.
Yes, a new life. I don't know the details either, but at least it's in a new edition and somebody is in charge of it. I hope they've done it right.
Fingers crossed. Vicky also said, what is the biggest challenge you had to overcome? And I'm going to add in developing your first game, because otherwise this could be a huge answer. And how did you manage it? Vicky and her husband are developing their first game, so.
Set yourself a deadline. Maybe tell yourself you're going to have this ready for the first playtest or the first edition or whatever, and work really hard at meeting that deadline. A reasonable deadline is what'll get it done, as opposed to it'll be done sometime in the next 10 years.
I think the biggest hurdle for me was convincing my wife that I should spend any time working on this instead of toward my graduate degree.
With Villains and Vigilantes, I mean, for getting over the hurdle of even grasping the concept that, wow, in a world where essentially Dungeons and Dragons is all there was, that you could even make games about other things, and there weren't some secret laws we didn't know about that said that wasn't allowed. That was a hurdle. Then it is a lot of work. And Mark's right. One should set deadlines and work toward them. And boy, I wish I could do that. I do my best. My Kickstarter backers are very mad at me for stuff that I still owe them from the latest edition. But you do what you can.
Isn't Kickstarter a marvel, though? Finding a way that for all of us, that there's a way for those people who really would like to be, people would like to know what we're doing, and they would like to be able to participate in it. And they say, "Oh, sure, I would buy you, a coffee or something to help you get along to get there." And then they get the brand new thing when it first comes out and see it before anybody else does.
Kickstarter saved my house. Actually, literally, I was about to lose my house. I had been laid off from my last computer games industry job, and did not have money coming in. And a friend commissioned me to redo the drawing of Elric that I did in Deities and Demigods for him, so he could hang it on his wall. And I did that, and I realized, hey, TSR destroyed all my originals back in the day, in case anybody wasn't aware. I have a justification for redoing all that old TSR D&D art, and I did that as a series of Kickstarters. The first one that I did was I think it was the Elric stuff, and literally got paid by Kickstarter like a day before I was going to lose my house.
Wow.
Wow.
What a success story, yes.
So yeah, I did that. On the other hand, I've gotten myself in a situation where I'm stuck with some stuff that's been hard to deliver, and it's blocking me from doing any new Kickstarter stuff, because that is a terrible thing to do, is launch another Kickstarter while you still owe stuff from the last one.
Oh, and, no, did you overpromise?
We under-delivered. I think we could have delivered, but we didn't, and it's a pain in the ass, and we're working on it. All our fault.
I have heard that difficulties with deadlines is kind of an industry-wide thing for many people. So, Zeldan said, "Didn't TSR make a Marvel game and a Top Secret?"
Yes.
Oh, and my Lord Morning Honk has already answered they did, and both are great games.
I worked on Top Secret as an artist, and when TSR started talking to Marvel, that was right when Jack Herman and I were working on 2nd edition Villains and Vigilantes, and the idea was floated of not giving 2nd edition Villains and Vigilantes to Fantasy Games Unlimited, but handing it to TSR and saying, look, here's a superhero RPG that you could use. But that was also the time when I was becoming dissatisfied with TSR and getting ready to leave, so it didn't get any farther than that. So they have a design of their own and did a fine job.
The longest running game I know personally is I have a friend who has run a Top Secret game for at least the 25 years I have known him. Every week. Probably longer than that, since he was already running it when I met him. So, all right, last question from Vicky. What is the biggest argument they ever had over one of your games?
You mean at the table?
I have no idea. She did not clarify. So answer it however you would like to answer it, whatever makes the best story.
None of us have ever had anybody have an argument about our games. They all believed that they were very good. At least that's all they've ever told me.
There's never been any argument, and no one's ever argued at the table about what something meant.
I shut it down real quick. They say, nope, that's not right. It's this way.
I kind
of tell them up front that they can argue with me if they want, but I will be the one who decides what they run into in the game. So it might not be, healthy for them to do that.
Rocks fall, everyone dies. Okay. I think I've got a couple for Jeff. Whose idea was it? Whose idea was having players base their villains and vigilantes PCs on themselves, and what was the reasoning?
Ah, okay. So imagine you're like a 17-year-old kid and you're making a role-playing game and it's set in the real world, except they're superheroes. The question inevitably will come up, where are you? Where are you really in a modern-day role-playing game? This should come up in, like, Top Secret, too. It's a modern-day RPG. I don't know why they didn't do that there. So it made perfect sense to us that if you want, you can say, well, you got superpowers, and then you throw some numbers at your character sheet and roll your random powers, and boom, you're a superhero. And it was a fine idea until around about the fourth or fifth campaign, when you're yet another new superhero, it starts to not make sense. But up until then, I think it was fine. And it was always possible to make a character just randomly, if you'd rather. Whose idea? I don't know. Either me or Jack. I don't know.
You just came up in conversation somewhere. There was a kind of a follow-up. Does this connect to your views on transhumanism?
Oh my gosh. I don't use the word anymore. Very bad people have seized that term and are doing bad things. So I'm not a transhumanist anymore. At least I don't use the term. People will think
seems to have
people will think that
with a lot of things, yeah.
People will think that means things that I don't mean at all.
You did some of the illustrations for Heroes Unlimited. Did anyone suggest to you that Villains and Vigilantes was an influence on Heroes Unlimited?
It didn't come up. I needed the work, so I did the work.
Well, I think it's only natural once there's a superhero game, there will be more superhero games.
Sure, it's a genre. Anybody can do it.
And let's see, there was one other question. In Villains and Vigilantes 2nd Edition, special attacks such as hitting a particular body part is handled by requiring 2 successful attack rolls or you miss.
Yeah.
Does this mechanic come from somewhere else, or did you invent rolling with disadvantage in 1982?
We made it up. At the time, it made sense. In 3rd Edition V&V, we don't do that. There is a modifier. You just you can take your 2 shots. Like multiple attacks, you could take your 2 shots independently. Each one is at a penalty to hit, so you're less likely to hit with each one. Boom, done.
Okay.
Simplified.
And last question from this person is for Marc Miller. Have you heard of the Album Traveler by the band Lord Weird Slough Feg, which is a rock opera based on their Traveler campaign?
Yes, I have.
This person's taste is even more eclectic than mine. I have to ask, have you ever listened to it?
I have not.
It's kind of bizarre, some of the places that our games have wound up. I have been told that Bunnies and Burrows has found a home in a certain community that I have had no experience with, of people that like to dress up as animals.
Oh,
Furries.
Oh, that's a natural for you. Yes.
I mean, Tolkien ended up in Led Zeppelin, so... It is interesting the people that get into the various hobbies. I mean, I can remember the reaction. Sorry, go ahead.
I have to tell you. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Scott. Okay, I'll do. So I've heard of this rock opera and this rock group, and they tried to get a hold of me, and it's easier for me to not talk to them, so they can just keep doing, because I haven't told them no, than if they talk to me and then I say, oh, you have to do a license and you have to do this. And as long as I haven't actually talked to them, they belong just fine.
Yeah, I was just going to add, along the, we never really know where these things are going to go to. A couple of years ago, I was contacted by a vice president at Playboy who wanted to adapt some aspect of Bunnies and Burrows into their ecosystem.
Oh, my goodness.
nothing came of it, but it was an interesting conversation.
I mean, I don't know. If I were you, I would have had very mixed feelings about that. Plus, the money was probably. Oh, I don't know. That the furries does not surprise me. The Playboy thing does. All right, let me check and see if I have any questions that I have missed. There is a fine line between wanting customers buying modules and published works and those creating their own stories in your setting. How do you balance that philosophy? I think I have heard about this, that like there's some worry, or possibly some worry from Wizards of the Coast, that if people have too many house rules, it cuts into their copyright capability or something. I don't know if that's what Legatus is referencing. But...
You know, back in the day, there was no such thing as modules, right? Yeah. For years, Dungeons and Dragons was a thing. You bought the rules, and until the Greyhawk and Blackmore, digest-sized books came out, there was no hint of the idea that, hey, you could get a world from somebody else to play in. The premise was you got the rules, and then they made your own dungeons and made your own
a lot of the things
kingdom and your own NPCs and make up some monsters if you want. It was all very creative.
Yes, and a lot of the things that we think are built into D&D rules, things like the thief class or druids, they started out as homegrown stuff that was just circulated on photocopy paper.
Right. Right. And the first published modules, if I think I got this right, were actually tournament events run by TSR that were then gathered together and published, because, we got this material, we're only getting any benefit from it at a convention, why not put it out in front of people? And it took off, and now modules are a thing. The whole idea of running a role-playing game and never making up your own world and your own places and your own adventures that's a thing now. Villains and Vigilantes, right? When it first came out, Jack, Herman, and I never thought that what we were doing is making our own superhero world. We thought, here, we're making a set of rules that people can use to run superhero role-playing campaigns. And of course here's the random roles for making up a supervillain, right? You can make as many supervillains as you want for your players to fight, and you live in the real world in modern times. There's your setting, right? We only ever name-dropped characters names of characters or organizations that we had used as parts of examples or in illustrations, because we had to get that material from somewhere. So we did mention the stuff we were doing, and people would not stop bothering us about, what's the name of the guy in the picture on page 17? So as of 3rd edition, we have embraced our apparent responsibility for making this a complete, coherent world. So now all of our illustrations are accompanied by captions that tell you who these people are, and there's a whole section in it, not just, here's an example of a good guy organization like S.H.I.E.L.D., and here's an example of a bad guy organization like Hydra, right? And we give you our analogs of those things. Now there's a whole chapter with Jack has written up elaborate stuff on all kinds of organizations and history and things. And there it is. And we still, as we're running up this game, we still want it to be usable generically. If you've got your own setting, by all means, use that instead.
But that's exactly how role-playing games work. That we designers think, we're giving you this framework and you can do anything you want. But unfortunately, the guy we sell it to has worked all day long, and then he's got all this stuff to do and family, and he wants to sit down on Friday night, and he hasn't had time to think up an Imperium or an evil villain organization.
Right.
And if we make that up for him, he's got that, and he's much closer to playing because
Right.
we equipped him for that. And I think that's what we missed. Every role-playing game, the early role-playing game designers missed that, whether it was Traveller or
Yeah.
D&D. We didn't give them adventures, and they absolutely needed it.
Right.
Some of them are filled with imagination, but some of them haven't had a chance to figure that out yet.
Yeah, and it's perfectly understandable why it went the direction it did. You know, back in the day, the customers were college and high school kids that, you know, they had all the time in the world, and now there's people playing RPGs that have jobs and families and lives and things. All these things that intrude on your gameplay.
But you know,
Oh,
you're touching on a whole different thing about the origins of role playing. Back in the day, we were just playing it to have fun. And none of us could conceive that 50 years later, there would still be people who would pick our games up and play them. And not just high school kids or college kids. These are grandfathers playing with their grandchildren. Who would have thought of that? And you know, one of the marvels of role playing is that you can sit across from your grandchild and play this game, and they will show you who they really are in a way that just having dinner or take them to a museum doesn't necessarily work. But they get to tell you what they think and what they care about and how their mind works. This is a story I tell. I played with my 8-year-old grandson, and he used his own character generation system. He created a Varger character who had 1 billion credits, you know, and we went out and he was traveling in a little spaceship and he stopped at a space lunch stand and he got lunch. And I told him it cost you 22 credits. And he laboriously subtracted 22 from 1 billion. And he got all the lines right all the way out, and now he knew how much money he had. You know, and he told me he's got to make it in this world. He knows how the world works. He knows how to take care of budgeting. And we get, as parents and adults, get to see people playing these games and enjoying their lives. It's just a wonderful feeling to feel that now.
yeah.
And I say this with a sense of pride, we invented a whole part of Americana today, the world's society today, that every kid, when they're about 10 or so, encounters role playing. And some of them, they want to play poker, or they want to play Little League Baseball or something, but some of them, this catches up with them, and it's part of their life for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, play is for how maybe Scott can say more on this, but play is how little baby creatures learn how to get by in the world, by learning how stuff works.
That's absolutely right.
And
It's a serious business. It's their job.
And role-playing games are like little toy play universes and little toy play identities that you can trot out and you know, run them through their paces and see what happens. That's great.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And of course, we're tricking the kids because they don't know that we're actually educating them.
Sure.
Speaking of education, has it been difficult incorporating elements of nonfiction into your games, biology, anthropology, etc.?
Well, no. I mean, it's integral to what I. So it's fairly obvious with something like Bunnies and Burros how you would do that. But look at the pulp adventure game that I've been developing. It's set in the Yucatan. And so, you know, I wind up doing this deep delve, and I know that Jeff and Amanda have done exactly the same thing when they're talking about their Pleistocene game or their Copper Age game. Do this deep delve into the history of the region, and I could tell you so much now that I have learned about the Spanish conquest of the Yucatan, and it just seeps its way into the building of the game. I don't know. I don't find it difficult at all to incorporate the nonfiction aspects. I think it actually makes the game richer.
And to be fair, it's more Manda than me. She is the genius researcher that compiles all this information and pulls usable gaming themes out of it, and I just try to keep up so I'm not completely lost by what she's discovered. But over the various games I've done, again, the answer to this question depends on the game. Like with Cave Master, Amanda did a huge amount of research into the Pleistocene, what creatures there were, what technologies primitive man used, what materials they depended on. All that stuff is in there because it's about that. Villains and Vigilantes, on the other hand, it's set in the modern world, but it's a superhero world, and the physics doesn't have to work.
You haven't
Like the real world does.
Deeply into quantum physics, huh?
You want mechanics that will produce results that make sense in a superhero setting, but aren't crazy for a man-to-man setting, because as everybody knows, any decent superhero role-playing game is really a universal game system in disguise. But then with Bithorm, we didn't have to do like research into the real world. This is a setting that this guy made up over decades, since he was a little kid. And so what we had to do was pore over all of the available source material that had ever been published, and a bunch that we got access to through the Tecumseh Foundation that was not available to the public, and make sure that the game we came up with would work with that stuff. So it varies. It depends on the needs of the game.
I collect testimonials. People send me an email and say, "Oh, I started playing your Traveler in 1981 or whatever," and there's a recurring theme that I didn't care about reading, or I didn't care about math, and then Traveler's science fiction. Traveler's space opera. Traveler is not a true simulation of reality, but nevertheless, it tries to put in things about physics. And they'll say, and it inspired me, the kid says, not a kid anymore. It inspired me, it showed me how things work. I showed my teachers were surprised that all of a sudden I was reading higher. It's just like Harry Potter. You get kids who don't care about reading, but when they get into Harry Potter, they read these huge books because it's captured their imagination. And our job is to put it in front of them and give them some rules. And then they ignore it or embrace it. And some of them, and they can do either. That's fine. Not everybody we touch is going to become a molecular biologist or an astrophysicist. But some of them, it's the spark that helps them find what's within them.
That's absolutely true. And on top of that, there is a responsibility when you embrace a genre, because that people attracted to Traveler, a lot of them are going to care about the science, and you do have to give them something that's not too crazily off from, plausibility in the context you're giving, right? You need to justify things. Like one of my favorite things about 3rd edition Villains and Vigilantes is we have a vehicle construction system, right? And it's one of my favorite things. It's fun. It's like snapping Legos together, with the different colored Legos represent different kinds of machinery that gives your vehicle different powers. That's how ours works. Nothing like Traveler vehicle construction. Traveler lives in the world of science as much as it can, with the caveat that it needs to support science fiction. My game lives in the world of Jack Kirby, so it doesn't really have...
But with the caveat that it has to live in the world of comic superheroes.
Right,
and
right.
Consistent with that.
but just also you need to be able to make like a regular car out of it. As long as you can do
Yeah.
that, and then also make crazy, dimension hopping, weird spider machines, then that was the goal. So it depends on the game. You got to make it be what it needs to be.
I am currently working with a developer who's doing a supernatural horror game, which you would not think would be big on research. I am actually in the process of researching the weirdest architecture that Europe has,
Huh.
because he wants to incorporate like strange, like the crooked houses and like just strange architecture. So yeah, throw it in where you can. Thank you very much to Goofus for your support as always. We really appreciate you. Legatus, before getting into game designing, did you all have creative imaginations?
Oh yeah.
Well, sometimes it goes too far, that I needed people to, oh, I think we should do this, and they say, that is stupid. Okay, back to the drawing board, that one didn't fly. We need some good creative, good constructive criticism. I love constructive criticism. They just tell me it's stupid, I don't like it, but, we had to have monsters in Traveler. Well, we were copying D&D, except it was in science fiction. And we couldn't just make a list of monsters because
Right.
there are a million worlds out there. And the easy way, okay, here's a Tyrannosaurus Rex but it's green, or with wings or all. We struggled with it. One of the designers in-house said, we should base this on ecological niches. You should have a apex predator. We should have a bunch of herd animals. We should have a bunch of little rodents, omnivores and herbivores, all that stuff. And it was a great concept, which really was a lot better than my original concept, which is just a list of monsters.
And yet you didn't
And we ended
include
up-
goats.
Well, he did. They're just called omnivore grazers, and then you end up with a rolling the dice for the number of legs and the number of horns and whatever else that we can do with dice. But it had a foundation in reality, in universal reality, and we ended up teaching something with it. But it also was somebody else giving me constructive feedback and saying, no, your idea is stupid, let's do this instead.
I was doing art before I also branched out into role playing game design. So yeah, to the question.
Yeah, I've always been, oriented towards science, but I've always been really imaginative in the way that I have consumed science, and a lot of what I did as a practicing scientist was imaginative. So yeah, that creative. I can remember I was in junior high school and I actually tried to build an anti-gravity machine. So
As one does.
as one does.
You
There's
gotta
gotta
have
be-
something to do to pass the
Gotta be a
time.
way to make that work,
Yeah, so onto the education thing. So I have dyscalculia. It's basically dyslexia except with numbers. And what very little math. Basically, the only reason I ever managed to graduate from high school math-wise was because I role-played. And it was the one thing that really, once it was tangibly in front of me, it was a little easier than, looking at a textbook and trying to figure out how this stuff worked. And before I started running games, I once took a psych test that tested me out as having basically the creativity skills of a slug.
Hey, I live in the Pacific Northwest. They can be pretty inventive.
So yeah, I mean, I think, there are a lot of people that are creative, but I also think that it does a wonderful job of kind of sparking abilities in some of us that we might not have ever found otherwise. This may be our last question. We're getting kind of low on time here. When it comes to dice, did RPGs create the various D4, D8, D10, D12, D20, or did dice create the genre? Was the game built around the dice, or the dice built around the game?
Probably talk to a friend of mine who is a dice broker. They had to look around for D20s when they first came out with Dungeons and Dragons. I think that they got Bristols that were made in the late '60s, and I think a lot of the other subtypes of dice, the eights and 12s and things like that, came after the genre. That's my understanding. They came after role
They,
playing games kind of made a splash.
I think they all existed before as like mathematics
Yeah, that's probably true.
toys and tools, and so everything was available. But there's nothing there. We're all super used to polyhedra dice, but there's nothing especially special about that. The goal in the design is to have mechanics that will allow things to happen and play out in a way that is plausible and hopefully also exciting or fun or silly in some cases. I mean, whatever the game needs. You can do similar things with cards. You can do them with handfuls of rocks, like in Cave Master. It's so that polyhedra dice are just very convenient because it gives you a lot of mathematical options. But at the end of the day, the important thing is, do the mechanics work?
It's also no accident that most polyhedral dice are based on platonic regular solids, which have been known for like 2,500 years.
And the inventors, they've come up with now, they're doing D100s and D17s. They don't have to be regular polyhedrons.
Right.
It can just be a cylinder with 17 sides or whatever.
Yeah.
But Gary, it reflects on Gary, he was clearly aware of the platonic regular solids when he did that. We didn't have D10s when it started. Yeah, RPGs led to creating D10s. But,
Yes, that's
Gary
correct.
did that, and alas, those multi-sided dice were not easily available. They were expensive.
And
That's why Traveler has just D6s, because
which
everybody has
is
D6s.
fine. The important thing is that the mechanics need to work. If you can
Yep.
make them work with whatever you choose to be your randomizer, then great.
Yep.
Great.
But there's an element of the dice that's important. It's not just there's a system that randomizes, but that we can understand the laws of probability about it. We know that it's going to be a D12, 12 different choices, equal opportunity for each one of them. A D20, where the chance of rolling a 20 is 5%. We know what risk we're taking. And you as the game player know what risk you're taking.
Right, and which is another important thing I've noticed. Some new game designers seem to have it in their heads that, oh, I'm sorry. Now, if this describes anybody out there, I apologize, but just consider. Some designers seem to get it into their heads that part of what they need to do is come up with some clever new way of doing the randomization. Weird tricks with, whenever you roll a 7, then you get to roll again, or the multi-step complicated things. I fear that designs like that, all you're really doing at the end of the day is making it hard for the player to grasp what their own odds are. The mechanics of the game are standing in for the physics of your world, where you know what your chances are maybe of jumping over a gap between two buildings if you were there in real life, considering doing it. You'd have a sense from having lived in that world of what your chances were. That's what the dice do. They give the player a sense of what their chances are so they can make decisions. And when you make unnecessarily complicated, elaborate, special case mechanics, you're hiding that from the player, and I don't think that's good design. That's me.
I will say that I've noticed this with a number of players over the years, and it's true with me too, that it works the other way around. That having experience playing these games with dice like D20s, you develop an intuitive feel for what those probabilities are. So if you ask somebody that doesn't play games and doesn't do dice regularly, you know, is a 5% chance something likely to happen, or is that something very unlikely to happen? And they'll say, well, that almost never happen. But if you play the game, you know, it doesn't happen all the time, but it happens regularly. So I think it's, again, kind of a hidden education, a mathematical education that's built into using the dice, where you develop an intuitive feel for certain aspects of statistics.
And then it's mapped to reality. We've said that your chance of leaping over that trench is 10%. Okay, then we start, if it's an accurate representation, we realize that, no, I can't just run and jump over that real world trench. I'm gonna have to really think about it. It really maps to reality, and they start having a feel for how reality works as well.
Right, right.
We've got 2 more questions I want to get through because I want to make sure you guys still have time to plug your stuff. Witch Queen has popped in to say, what does everyone think of diceless TTRPGs like Amber Diceless?
Haven't played it.
Have you ever played a diceless TTRPG at all?
No.
No. Actually, once a little. I think that it's an interesting idea. That diceless RPGs are an interesting idea, but they have been tried multiple times and not really caught on. And I couldn't tell you what the ultimate reason is for that, but they probably always have a place for people that want that sort of thing, and that's fine. But people seem to like to have mechanics that take a lot of the decision making out of anybody's direct control and leaving it to a randomizer.
Well, and you want some way of introducing uncertainty into the decisions that you make too. And it's the difference between a board game that's a simulation of a battle or something like that, where I'm perfectly happy with minimizing the randomness in something like that. But in an RPG, I think you want some uncertainty about whether or not what you're going to try is going to work.
Math rocks. We all love our math. We're all secretly dice goblins. That's all there is to it.
You know, dice are what keep these hobby stores solvent and profitable, because there's always that box of dice by the cash register for $1. And I always have to spend a couple of bucks on those shiny pieces of plastic as I leave the store.
Final question for the evening. Is there an aspect of early gaming you're surprised has lasted as long as it did?
Well, I mentioned riding with my mom to pick up my brother from his gaming group, where they're all sitting around a table with a ref screen and polyhedra dice and minis, and it looks the same now. That surprises me that the hobby arrived so fully formed in those basic regards, right? I mean, now we also have virtual tabletops, but apart from that basic thing, that's still the way it is. I don't know what I expected to change, but it is surprising that 50 years later or whatever it is now, that it's still the same.
That's a great surprise, but it's so true. I don't think any of us sitting here, ever gave it a thought to what it was going to be like 50 years later. And if you'd asked me, oh, you're going to be sitting here talking about this 50 years from now.
Oh, look, in the 60s, I was a kid in the 60s, and we loved to play with slot cars. And we would go to they would have these local establishments that you would go down and you'd pay them a quarter for every 15 minutes to run your slot car in a race around the track. And honestly, I think that when I was introduced to role-playing games in the 70s, I thought they'd probably about have the same lifespan as slot cars did.
Yep.
Yeah, slot cars are gone. Model trains are gone. Those things that people used to go to those game stores for,
Yeah.
are gone. And now we have like the local big game store here in Austin, Texas, is Dragon's Lair, and it's all comic books and graphic novels and board games and RPGs.
I guess the thing that's surprising to me is that RPGs, where you're in person around a table playing old school RPGs, are, I think, growing in popularity again in the face of video games. Because when video games really started to take off, where they had, they did the mechanics and you did decisions and it showed you graphics and all this stuff, I think the expectation was they would completely replace RPGs. And they haven't.
Well, having worked you guys, either of you work in the computer games industry at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Did ya?
Dennis certainly did.
So, like take a game that's incredibly popular, like Skyrim, right? You can run around with your character in the Skyrim world and they look at all the beautiful trees and things, and oh my god, individual blades of grass. But what you cannot do is you cannot bend down and pick up 3 grains of sand in your fingers. And you certainly can't set them in your hand and ask your game master to tell you what minerals the 3 grains of sand are made out of, right? And even if you have the magic spell, you cannot shrink down to each of those grains of sand like it's a whole world and go running around on it having adventures. Tabletop RPGs are that open-ended.
Yes.
Literally,
Yes, that's absolutely true.
anything the game master can step in and provide. He's throwing the railroad tracks down in front of you as you head toward a new region, right? Tabletop RPGs can still do that, and computer games can't, not yet. Now, I'm a big fan of a computer game called No Man's Sky.
Oh yeah.
Which is a procedurally generated universe science fiction-y RPG. It's nearly getting to the point of having enough things for you to do where you can kind of lose yourself in it and just react to the universe as you find it. But it's still not an RPG. Not that they ever promised it was going to be. Role-playing games are still special, and I think they will be for a while.
Right.
Do not tell me that AI is gonna change that, because AI sucks. It sucks, and there's a lot of reasons to think it's going to keep on sucking for a while. So
Definitely doesn't run.
Not concerned.
Doesn't run games well, from what I understand.
Yeah. But you hit on the whole thing. That the difference is face to face with other people, no matter what, is something that people need.
Yeah.
And,
Well, and when you're playing in that kind of a situation, in a no matter what the player is doing in a video game, you're still, and this is what Jeff was really saying, you're limited by what the programmers thought ahead to put into the video game.
Yeah.
When you're playing around a table in a tabletop RPG, there are things that emerge that the game master had no idea was going to happen.
Exactly.
Right.
But the game master can cope with it.
Yes.
And that's one of the secrets is there's a game master, and he can answer anything. He can make anything work because it's a real person with an imagination.
Now,
he might not make it work very well, but he's there and he can make it work.
And mind you, you will annoy that game master if you try the thing with the 3 grains of sand on him.
I was totally thinking that. I was like, if anyone ever did that to me.
But in theory, you could. There is no reason that GM cannot just make some shit up, and boom, that's the reality now.
I love it when something comes out of left field and completely surprises me at the table.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
On that note, we are 4 minutes before the time I promised you guys we'd be done. So that was absolutely wonderful. Thank you very much to the panel and the chat.
Thank you. What do we call
Let's.
you? Do we call you Goat?
Everybody just calls me Goat.
Goat. Okay.
Goat or Goaty.
Well, thanks, you Goat.
Let us know what you're up to, what you've got coming out, where you are, anything you want to plug. Scott, why don't you go ahead?
Well, I've mentioned a couple of things that are works in progress. Um, I'll be running stuff again at the Philadelphia area gaming exposition next January, in addition to going down to Dallas in June. Because of the 50th anniversary of Bunnies and Burrows, I'm trying to put together some special stuff, including an anthology of a bunch of games that we've run over the years. And there's a few years ago, I got invited to go to a conference in Glasgow by a bunch of fantasy literature people about the 50th anniversary of Watership Down. And I gave a talk at the conference about Bunnies and Burrows being inspired by Watership Down, which everybody loved. And that is now a book that's in press, and it'll be coming out later this year, too.
Cool.
Nice. That's very neat. What is the title?
I would have to look up. The publisher changed the title, and it's something literary sounding. But it has Watership Down in the title, so.
I'll have to keep an eye out. Jeff, what are you up to these days?
Okay, so I've mentioned Tales of the Unseen, the monster book for 3rd edition V&V that I'm working on, that I owe my Kickstarter backers. Honestly, it's getting super close. That's from my company, Monkey House Games, which is me and Jack Herman. He is, by the way, working on the progressively ill-described intro adventure for 3rd edition V&V, because it's really late. Then my other company, Unigames, which is me and my partner, Amanda, she is working on the Lost Age, which is the Copper Age RPG. And I am hoping that I'm about to be considered as an artist on Marc's galactic encyclopedia of with pictures. That's what I hope. We'll have to see. He didn't know I was even interested until I just said so.
Well, got me going there.
All righty.
No pressure.
Nope. Yeah, no pressure, man. It's okay.
Mark, what do you got coming up? What's going on?
Well,
where can people find you?
Well, as we wind down from the 50th anniversary of Bunnies and Burrows, we're going into the 50th anniversary of Traveller next year. Mongoose is the core publisher of Traveller, and they're doing a great job. They're going to do all kinds of things. I don't know all of them they're doing, but it's going to be a fun year as they do things all year long. I said I'm working on comic books. They're not traditional storytelling comic books. They're, lore books, I guess I'd call them. Information that you would love to know sitting at the table. I'm going to do a couple of Kickstarters on that in the next 6 to 12 months. And beyond that, I'm just watch the major conventions. I expect to be at those. Make sure you come and talk to me when you see me in the theater hall. I'd love to talk about Traveller.
Major conventions would be like
Gen Con Origins, not this year, but next year. Gamehold Con in Wisconsin. Traveller Con next year in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Those are the ones I know about. I'm
never sure if GaryCon counts as a major convention these days, or if not that I'm like that is also on the wrong side of the country.
All conventions are major for those of us that love them.
Yes.
And I forgot to mention, I will also be at Page and at North Texas RPG Con, and there's a little con called T-Fest that's happening right near Austin, where I live. that's coming up soon, and Concoction, which is another convention run by the Page guys
That's
in New
New Jersey,
Jersey. Yeah,
right?
it's Jersey. That's coming up soon, where I will be there.
I really, really desperately want to make Page next January, but again, there's the whole finance travel thing.
It's
And
a good show. It's big.
It's getting bigger every year, but we'll save a seat for you at the table.
It seems amazing, but it's like a 12-hour drive for me, and I drive a farm truck that gets 10 miles to the gallon. So there are logistics I still haven't figured out. I keep hoping that my chat will be lovely enough to, like pay for a plane ticket for me to get there at some point. So.
Tell him you're gonna do a special episode, like reporting from a con.
Yeah. Oh, that is absolutely what I plan to do.
Yeah,
that is absolutely what I plan to do. My plan was to run for like 3 days of the convention and just spend the 4th day taking video. That was my goal, but we shall see. There's still plenty of time, so fingers crossed. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you to the chat. Thank you to the panel. I am the Eclectic Goat. I am on, oh, good heavens, I've lost track at this point. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I am now on Substack. I am no longer on Discord because they got all weird and then got hacked. I think that's everything. I can never quite remember what I'm on these days unless I actually look at the apps on my phone. Let's see. What do I have coming up? I am trying to remember. The schedule is getting a little bit weird because we're coming to the end of this season. Everybody keeps asking me why I do things in seasons, and it's because in the coming weeks, everyone's schedules get really weird. And it gets really hard to make everything work and come together. And so I find that if I have like 2 months where we just watch a television show nobody's ever heard of before, and then come back, people's schedules have like eased up a little more. But next week we are going to be talking about some indie zombie games, mostly from first-time game designers, but not all of them. We then have a week where I don't have anything planned because of that same scheduling thing I was just talking about. I had to move some people around due to scheduling issues. The week after that is my birthday stream. So I will probably be online for a ridiculous amount of time, and everyone, including current panelists, should feel free to just hop in, talk games, have a good time for however long you can stay, and then hop out again. And then we are going to be having the season finale on May 11th, which will be Random Film Talk and the T-Shirted Historian, and one to be announced on how important it is to keep accurate history in your entertainment. We'll be talking about games, we'll be talking about television shows, we'll be talking about movies. And then we'll be going into other things for a few months. So I do not believe I am on anyone else's show in the next week. I will check my schedule just to make sure that I'm not insulting anyone. Nope, doesn't look like it. I don't think I am actually scheduled for anything until next month, so.
Goat, I want to interrupt for a minute here and thank you for having us today. We've had a good time.
Thank you.
Had a good time. I can't speak for Scott or Jeff, but I've had a good time talking about my stuff and about origins of role-playing to begin with.
Yep.
But it wouldn't happen if you hadn't invited us, so thank you.
Well, thank you for coming. I was so excited when I have to be honest. I basically sent out emails and said, if one of them says yes, I will be so thrilled. And then all 3 of you did. And I basically just walked around in circles for like the rest of the day.
You mistake me for somebody that has a life.
We're all
I
very.
want to thank you for stroking our egos.
That's right. We're all very starved for attention out here.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, again. And I hope that everyone has a great night. And as always, happy headbutting.
Thank you.
It's a fucking goat! authors and cinema love, a passion for the weird and the strange. She's snappily dressed and only slightly deranged. Come and meet the eclectic go, lover of classics and whiskey notes, disciple of horror and the written word, happy head hunting, come join the herd. Shows might be a little improper. We've got real zombie, fake whizzes the otter, pizza in one hoof, glass in the other, deciding which role-playing games we will cover. Come and meet the eclectic go, lover of classics and whiskey notes, disciple of horror and the written word, happy head butting, come join the herd. Got a thing for black and white screens, crappy horror with low budget scenes, choose on the history, spits out the law, time for another whiskey pour. Come and meet the eclectic go, lover of classics and whiskey notes, disciple of horror and the written word, happy head butting, come join the herd.